Heya, Larry Koopa 64DS Hacker here, and today I'm here with a video to show you all Larry's personality. I'm making this video because I feel there's a lot of misinformation surrounding the Koopalings, and with as much misinformation as there is, it gets stressful trying to correct it all the time, and I really don't want to argue with anyone over this anymore because it's irritating. So, I'm hoping that this video can help people understand Larry better. There are a few things to go over. Larry is a 13-year-old boy who is characterized as lazy, grumpy, a big eater, and I believe he is misunderstood as well. Treated like a villain who does evil when he really doesn't actually want to do the things Bowser orders. Definitely a lack of interest. Despite Larry's grumpy attitude and his lack of trust in others, I think Larry is a good kid at his core who just needs some help to dig himself out of a plight that he's in. However, due to him being Bowser's minion, no one really believes him about his fear of Bowser despite his respect and admiration for Bowser. Larry seems to have an interest in tennis, DJing, and horses if you count canon-compliant sources like Mario and Sonic, which, due to Mario characters being fairly consistent in canon, more so if you look at the Japanese versions, which tends to not have some of the contradictions localization will have, though Bowser can still be pushed to the point of trying to kill Mario, but doesn't try it often and never orders his minions to kill. But that's a whole can of worms I, again, don't want to argue about, and this isn't about whether or not Bowser orders his minions to kill or tries himself to kill. It's about Larry's characterization and what kind of character Larry Koopa truly is from my understanding. I find it a bit difficult to believe Mario and Sonic gets things wrong. I use Mario and Sonic as a source of information here as well for that reason. There is also the fact Nintendo is very particular about what the Wreck-It Ralph team did with Bowser, such as the way he holds his coffee or the mouth he makes. Considering Nintendo cared this much about the accuracy of Bowser and Wreck-It Ralph makes me more so believe that they would put the same care into the accuracy of Mario and Sonic. Therefore, the way Larry behaves with things he's interested in or the trust issues Larry depicts having. Without further waiting, let's begin the video with how Larry is with food. In Paper Mario Color Splash, there's a mission where Mario has to cook a steak for Larry, whose appearance is obscured behind a curtain. Though he's not good at hiding his identity, speaking using oida as his first-person pronoun like usual, and admitting he has a shell in the Japanese version of Color Splash. And it's easy for one to see Larry as picky, which people often use in a negative context when describing someone, based on the following quotes. "What's this? It's too tender and it's too raw! It looks like meat, that's all I can give you! I can't eat this scrap! Is it supposed to be burnt like this? Or were you hoping I wouldn't notice that it's completely charred? I really want to chastise you, but I'm simply too weak from hunger. It's raw! The meat is raw! You think I'm some wild, uncivilized animal or something? Get out of here! You offend me! You call this meat? I tasted shoe leather that was way tenderer than this! This was clearly not prepared for long enough. The taste is reminiscent of cardboard. You somehow created the most bland dish I've ever tasted. No salt, no pepper, no nothing. Awful. The meat has barely been cooked! It's as raw as a freshly plucked baby carrot! And I hate carrots! What sort of? Oh, I can't even finish my sentence. This is terrible! My whole mouth tastes like a replica! I'm going to give you one more chance. If you mess it up again, don't think I won't. Think of something to do, because I will! However, I actually don't think it's Larry's fault that he's like this about food. Rather than him being picky in a negative way, I would say it's more so that Larry has higher sensitivity to taste than other people do. The following quotes give examples of what makes me think that. Ah! You used something odd during preparation, didn't you? What kind of chef doesn't use the proper tools to craft a meal? Seems like the full flavor hasn't quite sunk in here. Did you add the seasoning at the wrong time in the process? The sour flavor is there, but it's missing a certain pop. Perhaps it didn't set in correctly. Your timing with the seasoning was off. Almost, but not quite. It's missing a flavor. One flavor. It's lacking some kind of sour, fresh flavor. You know what I mean? showcasing here that Larry can taste the difference if the wrong tools are used to craft the meal, or can tell timing the seasoning was added during the cooking process. He also shows a little more respectful behavior here when trying to give genuine criticism than he does if Mario really messes up cooking the steak, and can tell if the steak is missing one flavor. In fact, Larry actually confirms that he has higher sensitivity to taste than others with this quote.
You did something extra after you grilled the meat, didn't you? I can tell, I'm a super taster, you know?
Larry calls himself a super taster. Larry being a super taster means that he has more than 30 fungiform papilla, which house the taste buds, on his tongue and experiences taste many times more strongly than others as a result. While the toads that Mario can talk to in that part in Color Splash are just picky, it's not that Larry is picky too and just needs to not be picky, it's that Larry actually can't help it because he experiences taste many times more stronger than your average person because he has more fungiform papilla on his tongue, which, when touching a piece of food, sends signals to his brain that he's tasting something. And because Larry has more fungiform papilla than others do, it sends even more signals to Larry's brain than it does for anyone else, causing Larry to experience tastes more stronger than most people. Poor kid, no wonder he gets really upset when Mario messes up the steak as badly as he can. Bad tastes are not fun, and I can't imagine how much worse a bad taste is if it's experienced with much stronger tastes. I find it unlikely that all those toads in the Tangerino Grill who can give hints on how to cook the steak properly are super tasters, so while I find it unfair to call Larry picky due to him being a super taster, I think it's fair to call the toads picky because I doubt all of them are super tasters. So Larry has a pretty consistent attitude going on in the games. I think this attitude stems from him being deeply hurt due to his plight personally. Most of the time, Larry seems to act pretty grumpy or moody or have a meanish flair to what he's saying. But I think because he's a 13-year-old boy that he has trouble expressing deep-rooted trauma or things bothering him, resulting in him being irritable and grumpy. Larry is definitely irritable because in Paper Mario Color Splash, there's a Spike who talks about wanting to plug up the smokestack with stuff, and say how Larry will get upset if he did that he'd get in trouble. Alongside that, how Larry reacted to hearing how the chef was unable to cook for him. He was like,
"Okay, we'll get someone else to make the food!"
He also gets mad when he, sees Mario arrive for a fight in the NSMB games, as well as has an insecure and short-tempered reaction to Starlo insulting him hypocritically in Paper Jam. Overall, the way he speaks in most cases seems grumpy. I'm not really sure how else to describe it. But for the sake of what I'll get into, Mario and Sonic Tokyo 2020 quotes, for example, what I mean by there being somewhat of a grumpiness going on in his quotes.
What? What is it? You want something from me? I don't need nothing from you! What? You came for the excitement battery? Eggman Nega sent you? Yeah, sure! Unlikely story! Why would I trust anything you say? Magic Koopa gave me this battery to hold on to, and I'm not going to hand it over to some random guys who asked for it! Uh-huh! Ask me if I care! Shy Guys! Yo, Shy Guys! What? You found me already? It was a real pain trying to sneak in here after I lost my pass. You can chase me all you want, but I'm only handing this battery over to Eggman Nega. Like I believe that! King Bowser? What's this thing have to do with King Bowser? Now I know I really can't trust you. If you want this battery, you'll have to win this event. If that's what you think, then you can just slink away and forget about the battery. If you really want this battery thing, you're gonna have to take me on and win.
Yeah, I don't really know how to describe it. It's something that's there that I can't quite put my finger on exactly how to explain it. But I guess something that is noteworthy is that Larry's quotes in Mario and Sonic in Tokyo 2020 in particular have shown that Larry has issues trusting others. Larry has pretty high guard, refusing to trust any of the player characters who were sent by Eggman Nega to get the excitement battery. Honestly understandable why he doesn't trust them when you consider that one of them is Luigi and another is Peach. And Mario Pro Tags have a history of hurting Larry. But then one of them is Tails and he doesn't trust Tails either just as much as he doesn't trust Luigi and Peach. probably a good and evil sort of thing, where he doesn't trust anyone who identifies as or is seen as good, and only trusts people who don't identify as either or identify as evil, at least. That's the way I interpret his trust issues in Tokyo 2020. The only way for Larry to have possibly developed trust issues in a high guard like this is if he is traumatized from the history he's had with people who identify as good. That would make sense anyway, since he spent at most maybe 6 in-universe years being physically abused constantly since he was at least 7 or maybe 8, and is now 13. All those years of his only childhood having been wasted on that abuse, all because he is too scared to tell Bowser how he really feels about world takeover, and how he just doesn't really care about it or want to help with it. And the people who identify as good aren't really trying to understand him as a person, rather they are trying to understand him as their definition of Bowser's minion, which they see as evil. I also believe that Larry suffers trauma from the evil labeling and all the beating, not just because of his grumpy attitude he generally has alongside his high guard and trust issues, but also the fact that in Bowser Jr.'s journey, before Bowser Jr. gave what is likely intended to be the objective answer as to whether or not the Koopalings and Bowser's minions are good or evil, Jr. asks the Koopalings if they're evil and Larry stays silent, not answering, confirming that Larry genuinely believes that he is evil despite the fact he is just a scared kid who is stuck between a rock and a hard place with fearing Bowser because that's what he's been told he is, and he's been beaten for it, and the trauma causes him to be grumpy and guarded and mean. Larry is lazy, and that is no secret to Larry himself. He unapologetically admits to it, saying,
"You should know I don't intend to try very hard. Also, I'm not gonna be captain. Seems like a lot of hassle."
However, it even extends to Larry getting distracted by other things, like the Tangerino Grill and Color Splash. Larry is supposed to get the orange big paint star, and while one could argue that walking there would be slower than riding the train that was constantly stopped, since Larry was a mysterious VIP passenger, the thing is, firstly, he could have taken a clown car or airship to Starlight Cape, and secondly, the Sunset Express was constantly slowed down because of Larry ordering minions to mess at the train works, so he was definitely wasting his time on other things. Probably to get a few extra nap hours or play video games or do something else he would rather do. He was also wasting his time for the span of multiple days too, because Wendy confirmed that she waited in that clamshell for days on end, all those days, and Larry didn't go to Starlight Cape to get the orange big paint star. He didn't start trying to get to Starlight Cape with speed until he heard Mario was headed to Starlight Cape, and had his minions hijack the train in an attempt to beat Mario there because he was scared of being yelled at by Bowser. Larry never got the orange big paint star in the end, being the only Koopaling who was tasked with getting a big paint star to have never seen the big paint star up close or touch it. I think the poor kid has trouble getting himself to do things he has no interest in, because otherwise, with as much as he talks about the fear of being scolded, he would push through. In Mario & Luigi Paper Jam, it's implied Larry was with Roy and Wendy when they were enslaving Toad to collect ore. However, Larry clearly found it uninteresting and didn't want to do it, because when Roy and Wendy try to call for Larry later on, he doesn't show up, showing that he got distracted and split the group to go do his own thing as opposed to helping Roy and Wendy enslave the Toads into collecting ore for Bowser's Flying Castle. While I do see Larry as being lazy, I also think that part of it is that he is simply unable to help it. Considering fear would normally be a motivator for getting someone to do something they're not interested in. However, for Larry, scaring him with yelling doesn't really do anything to help or change anything. He still has a lot of trouble trying to focus on Bowser's orders and often finds himself distracted by something else, while the yelling just gives him trauma instead. Though there is definitely times where he is deliberately lazy with things he's tasked to do, as he admits. Okay, so I'll start this segment off with this. You ever notice that Larry sometimes attempts to mimic Ludwig, but does so poorly? No? Okay, let me explain. I will start off with this. In Mario & Sonic Rio 2016 3DS version, and the Wii U version despite Ludwig's lack of appearance, and Mario & Sonic Tokyo 2020, when Larry gets first place, he tries to mimic Ludwig's second place victory animation, but gets dizzy from spinning. Larry getting dizzy from spinning is a frequent occurrence, fun fact, so I put it in LarryDS. Anyway, that's not the only instance of Larry attempting to mimic Ludwig and doing poorly. In Bowser Jr.'s Journey and Paper Mario Color Splash, we see Ludwig is an excellent planner and can use his intellect to turn tricky situations in his favor. when he outsmarted Beep and pushed Kaylee to a breaking point to turn the tables against her, or when he built half a battleship and an entire submarine all as part of one master plan to win against Mario. In terms of intellect and getting himself out of tricky situations, Larry is the opposite. In Mario & Luigi Paper Jam, after Starlo assaults Larry in the pipe, in the Japanese version, when Starlo insults Larry, it hurts him to the point he feels the need to prove himself, claiming that he will get serious. After Mario, Luigi, and Paper Mario child abuse Larry and fight Ludwig, saying the term separately here because Ludwig is likely an adult, but I like him and don't want him to get being hurt, though Ludwig does enjoy his battles against Mario, so I can't really say much else. Larry claims that losing was all part of his plan the whole time, despite contradicting himself earlier. Larry does this again in the Japanese version of Paper Mario Color Splash, after he presumably slacks off at the Tangerino Grill asking for the perfect steak to be prepared for him. After he hears Mario is headed to Starlight Cape, he realized that Bowser would yell at him because he got distracted again. So he attempts to beat Mario there by having minions hijack the Sunset Express. When Mario manages to catch up to a moving train, Larry says Mario didn't do bad and admits he wanted to actually rest more rather than fight Mario. But with Mario showing up, there was no helping it. He gets a little distracted small-talking about how Mario is a good cook, then remembers he doesn't have the time because he has to defeat Mario and get the big paint star from Starlight Cape. Larry being the only one who didn't already have his big paint star by the time Mario came for a fight, while Roy had no paint star to get. Because if he doesn't, Bowser will yell at him, and it's scary to him. Then as the battle starts, he claims Mario jumping into battle was just as he planned and that Mario fell for his trick, despite contradicting himself earlier by admitting he didn't want to fight Mario in the first place and wanted to nap instead. The way I interpret this is that when things don't go well for Larry, he tries to make it look like he mimicked Ludwig's ability to plan things out so well by claiming he did, even though he didn't. You can tell he didn't because he contradicts himself earlier, and based on his consistent behavior in the games I'll get to later, it's clear he isn't really interested in World Takeover. He has a tendency to try to mimic Ludwig because he has a serious case of little brother syndrome, which I most commonly see defined as one seeing themselves on a one-sided competition with another party, the other party often unaware. I think this makes the most sense with him claiming things that were clearly not improvised or improvised and all part of his plan. He feels insecure and overshadowed, so he's trying to make it look like he outplanned Ludwig. He probably also is trying to cope too, as he probably struggles when things don't go according to plan. I would say that Larry's serious case of little brother syndrome or insecurity might come from the fact that Roy has called Larry pathetic once and spineless once in the Japanese version of Bowser Jr.'s Journey. Roy calling him spineless was in both versions, I think. I know it was in the US version. As well as Bowser commonly calling his minions devaluing things as part of his tough speak, and Larry taking Bowser literally in Rio 2016, with Rio 2016 also showing us that Larry states some of the other Koopalings never let him hear the end of his embarrassing failures, which is normal for siblings. And even when Starlo calls him small or pitiful in the Japanese version of Mario & Luigi Paper Jam for attacking in the dark, even though Starlo started it by attacking first in the dark, poor Larry feels the need to prove himself due to insecurity. Finally, now for the last full segment, let's get an understanding of Larry's motives in the game, shall we? I'm going to go ahead and say it, I don't think Larry cares about taking over the world, and I certainly don't think he wants the position of power Bowser is offering him in his army. Let me explain. To start off, Jack-specific 2.5-inch figure box description for Larry Koopa states, he always tries to do what Bowser says to avoid being yelled at, but often finds himself distracted by his hungry belly, which is exactly what happened in Paper Mario Color Splash. He got distracted by hunger and went to Tangerino Grill as a VIP customer. Then when he heard Mario was headed to Starlight Cape, he realized Bowser was gonna yell at him, which made him scared, so he had the minions hijack the Sunset Express while he tried to fit in one last nap on the way in an attempt to beat Mario there. He also straight up says he's doing what Bowser says to avoid being yelled at in both the Super Mario Bros. 3 Japanese instruction booklets and the Japanese version of Paper Mario Color Splash. The latter, he specifies that he's scared. Kamek in Bowser Jr.'s Journey says otherwise about the minions, that they don't do as he says out of simply fearing him, but rather because he treats them well. But I think that's just most minions and doesn't really apply to Larry pretty clearly. as it doesn't even apply to all minions based on the shy guy who asked Mario to lend him an ear to hear what he has to say about working for Bowser on the Sunset Express. The shy guy actually asking Mario to hear him out rather than socially inappropriately trauma dumping like Larry does and like admittedly I do. Even when you're aware of it, it's harder to control. Despite Larry's respect and admiration for Bowser, I think he doesn't care about taking over the world or being a leader of minions in Bowser's army because he actually displays the same type of behavior he displayed in Bowser Jr.'s journey with Bowser's orders when it came to Ludwig telling Larry to try reasoning with Jr. and Larry wanted to let Jr. just sink or swim rather than trying to teach Jr. In Bowser Jr.'s journey, Larry wanted to let Jr. sink or swim, but Ludwig tried to reason with Jr. despite his behavior. Larry immediately tells Jr. that Ludwig said it's his turn and makes a half-baked effort to tell if Jr. is listening, then almost only talks about one thing, realizing he almost forgot he had more to talk about. After a while, he gets impatient and gives up halfway through, telling Jr. that Ludwig can tell him the rest of the battle information he was going to give. Larry attempts to beat Jr. in battle, but didn't think Jr. was so strong, and when saying Jr. was stronger than he thought, Japanese version, Jr. tells him that he's 10,000 years too young to beat him, probably meant that he'll never beat him in 10,000 years, and Roy replies to Larry telling him, "You're pathetic." Later on in the game, when Bowser's castle is under attack, he gives Larry the opportunity to lead Jr., with Larry telling Wendy it's not worth it, and Jr. says he doesn't need him and to let him prove it, showing that Larry wanted to let Jr. sink or swim the whole time, with him expecting Jr. to lose to him in battle and wasn't really on the same page as Ludwig about reasoning with Jr. likely due to his behavior. So he displayed some of the same behavior he usually does with Bowser's orders, where he's unable to get himself to put much work into it, except with Ludwig, he isn't afraid to just give up halfway through, unlike with Bowser. When it comes to Bowser's orders, Larry displays this behavior 10 times more extreme. He outright ends up skipping work in Paper Jam when Roy and Wendy try to call for him, but he doesn't arrive, implying Larry was with them earlier when they were enslaving Toads to collect ore, but didn't feel like doing it and got distracted and found a way to split the group and slack off from Bowser's orders. The same thing can be said for Paper Mario Color Splash, where Larry is at Tangerine No Grill as a VIP customer, and the VIP passenger the mysterious VIP passenger on the Sunset Express. The Sunset Express which would be stopped multiple times by Larry's own minions, presumably so he could slack off doing something else that distracted him in the moment. That's my theory anyway. But we do know that Larry's minions were ordered to attack the kitchen. Larry had time to go into the VIP room where his identity is obscured to ask for the perfect steak. Larry wasn't really smart enough to actually hide his identity though, whereas in the Japanese version he straight up states that he has a shell when behind the curtain, as well as speaks so like he usually does, giving it away to Japanese players that it's him. That's one of the reasons I don't think Larry saying Bowser will scold him and that he's scared of Bowser is an act. He's way too consistent about it, and pretty clearly based on that moment in Color Splash, he's not smart enough to pull and act like that consistently. We've seen many holes are in his so-called plans when he attempts to mimic Ludwig. On top of the fact he's often slacking off Bowser's orders and displays the same kind of behaviors with Bowser's orders that he did with Ludwig telling him to teach Junior battle strategy. Larry makes sure to say that he was told to, so that's why he's doing it. Like when it comes to Bowser's orders, and in Bowser Jr.'s journey, we know he wasn't on the same page as Ludwig, and I think if we can allow canon-compliant sources like Mario and Sonic to give us answers, we've actually seen what Larry is like when he actually wants to do something and has interest in it. Never detailed in a canon source, unfortunately, aside from maybe saying the fact that canonically he is the DJ in Mario Kart 8's Electrodome and shows him putting work into and enjoying something he's interested in. I mean, he looks like he's having a blast. In Mario and Sonic Rio 2016 Wii U version, Larry reluctantly comes to Rio to root for Bowser despite the fact he made a plan to hang out with his friends. In that game, Larry ducks his head into the Olympic Equestrian Center and gets hooked, showing clear interest and enjoyment in watching the horses race. Larry soon gets gets into it himself and puts a whole lot of practice into horseback riding and implies the player should do the same. He can't stop info dumping about horses, alongside the occasional trauma dumping about his fears of Bowser despite his respect and admiration. And eventually he starts having trouble with horseback riding and the horse is not listening to him. However, even when it gets difficult, he doesn't stop trying or start getting distracted by other things and skipping out and instead manages to have the drive and determination to keep on going until he eventually solves his problem, despite his usual attitude with things like Bowser's orders or him being a lousy manager due to his lack of interest in leading, or him being unable to put enough focus or him being unable to focus enough to put much effort into giving Junior battle strategy information for Ludwig. And says how horses are talented animals and how his horse just does what he says, making his job all the more important because he can't blame the horse for his failure. When Larry wins a medal, he feels bad that he won a medal and his horse got nothing, so he decides he will sneak his horse carrots as a reward for its contribution to his victory. Larry realizes he spent the whole time at the Olympic Equestrian Center, having not known earlier when it was time for a break, and realizes he forgot to root for Bowser, the thing he came to Rio for, getting nervous and hoping Bowser didn't notice that he wasn't there in the crowd. Larry states that he associates the entirety of the Olympics with horses by that point, and all the normal stuff feels weird to them. We see that when Larry has interest in something, he becomes pretty strongly interested and obsessed, something that he must have enough of with how much it looks like he was having a blast while DJing in the Electrodome stage, but far from even a single bit of when it comes to Bowser's orders or taking over the world. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to stop talking about it and wouldn't get distracted by anything else, no matter how difficult it got. Most importantly, I don't think Larry would be displaying the exact same behavior, but 10 times worse than he did when trying to teach Junior when it came to Bowser's orders. It's clear Larry's motives when it comes to Bowser's orders are explicitly to avoid being yelled at, and I really can't see it any other way. It's clear Larry has a fear of Bowser alongside his respect and admiration for Bowser. I think it's likely that's based on Larry taking Bowser's supportive comment telling him to win the Equestria Finals or else in Rio 2016 Wii U literally, and thinking it was a serious threat to be scared about. That Larry probably takes Bowser's biggest baddest brute act literally, thinking that because Bowser says he's the biggest baddest brute, that it must mean he has no choice but to do Bowser's orders, and if he admits he doesn't want to, then something horrible will happen to him, or might be scared of the possibility of Bowser disliking him for not being interested in helping him take over the world, considering how much he respects and admires Bowser. So he plays it safe by agreeing to do as he says and ends up getting himself to try to do things he doesn't want to and can't focus on it. Even though Bowser wouldn't hurt him for admitting he doesn't want to work for him and would instead let him go. Larry pretty clearly doesn't like leading based on him willingly letting Captain Goomba continue to lead, saying,
"I'm not gonna be captain, seems like a lot of hassle."
Despite claiming that obeying a Goomba made him sick, before he realized Captain Goomba was being serious about saving Bowser. I don't see why Larry, who dislikes leading and has been shown to be a lousy manager as a result in Color Splash with the minions complaining about his poor management, and when the choice was his, willingly handed that job over to Captain Goomba, who has the passion for it and like him, would willingly work in Bowser's army as one whose job consists of leading minions and fighting Mario, two things he pretty clearly doesn't want to do, especially when Larry questions Captain Goomba based on the fact the other Koopalings are stronger than him, and pretty consistently the minions all acknowledge how strong Mario is. I find it hard to believe Larry sees a point in fighting Mario, and I believe he lacks interest in it as well as taking over the world, and thus is unable to get himself to focus on the goal no matter how much Bowser yells at him. Unlike Kamek and Paper Jam, it's like Larry is just unable to get himself to put very much focus into what Bowser orders, but the only thing Bowser's yelling does is causing him trauma and fear of him despite his respect and admiration for him. Although Bowser isn't abusive to his minions and cares very much about his minions, in this particular case, I think Bowser is unintentionally abusing Larry since yelling works to motivate his other minions to not skip out and focus on their work. But that doesn't work for Larry, obviously. Larry, I feel, has a lot of trouble getting himself to focus on the work he is tasked with doing as opposed to being traditionally lazy, and I can't really actually, and I don't think he can actually help the fact that he is unable to focus with helping with World Takeover, though he still has laziness, of course. Trivial Larry Fact 1. So based on the way Larry is written, his behavior and lack of intelligence, don't worry Larry, I was also very stupid when I was around your age as well, I was theorizing that Larry was somewhere between 11 and 14 years old. When I asked about the direction his current voice actress, Michelle Hippie, was supposed to take when voicing him, she told me that Nintendo told her to speak gibberish like a 13-year-old boy, right in my estimated age range. So that means that Larry is most likely or must be 13 years old since it fits the way he's written. Trivial Larry Fact 2. Did you know that Larry likes puppies? When taking Bowser literally in Rio 2016, thinking that Bowser telling him to win or else was a serious threat, he tells the player how no sentence ends with or else ends well, and that no one ever says you have to win or else you get a puppy, implying that an or else statement that ends well would be one where the condition is you get a puppy, which would imply that while Larry is possibly a horse person, he also likes puppies. Trivial Larry Facts 3. Larry Koopa has a severe form of red-green color blindness. Although the theme park Super Nintendo World isn't always canon compliant, I do believe that the portraits depict what things would look like in canon, which would include Larry's art style, where he mixed up several colors in a way that adds up with him having a severe red-green color blindness. Trivial Larry Facts number 4. Larry is defensive of Morton. Like in Bowser Jr.'s journey, when Bowser Jr. was mistreating Morton, Larry shouts at Bowser Jr. to, that he was trying to help, and to not say bad things about Morton. Larry also cares enough about Bowser to risk his own life to try to save him, despite his, fear, probably considering his respect and admiration for Bowser, though I think this also ties into Larry having a good heart, as shown in Rio 2016 when he felt guilty he won a medal and his horse got nothing. Trivial Larry Fact number 5. Larry cares very much about his hair and keeping it flashy, seen in the idle animations for him in the 3DS Mario & Luigi games, especially Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Minions, as well as him saying he wishes he had the chance to fix his bed hair before going out in Rio 2016. The Japanese version anyway. Trivial Larry Fact number 6. Larry owns a company for making vehicle lights called Larry Lights. Considering Larry's attitude with delivering mail in Tokyo 2020, I don't imagine he likes this very much, and I believe, hypothetically, it's something Bowser ordered him to do. 13 is quite young to own a company. Trivial Larry Fact number 7. Larry is the ghost racer on the time trial for the Electrodome stage in Mario Kart 8, which is pretty cool and fitting for his character since Electrodome showed him as a DJ. Also, just gotta love Mario Kart Tour's Wintertime Larry, he's cute. So to close this off, I'm going to give a little summary of what we just learned here about understanding Larry's character, what makes him tick in this full-on psychoanalysis. Larry Koopa is a misunderstood 13-year-old boy who is a good kid at his core, despite his grumpy, mean, and non-trusting exterior. He has a reputation for being lazy and, to be fair, will choose to be at times, due to having difficulty getting himself to focus on Bowser's orders despite his fear of being yelled at, and of Bowser, fearing Bowser despite his respect and admiration for Bowser. His behavior depends a lot on his situation, whereas if his situation is more positive, he's more positive and nice, or if he's around his bosses, he watches his tone, as he said in Rio 2016, and as he was depicted doing in Bowser Jr.'s journey, and he just acts grumpy or has attitude around everyone else, or in other instances. Larry is in a place where he doesn't actually want to do what Bowser orders, but is scared of Bowser and doesn't want to be scolded despite his respect and admiration for Bowser and believes it's mandatory. Larry needs help with talking to Bowser and admitting that he doesn't want to help with World Takeover. However, unfortunately, no one in his universe really believes him, and because they won't give him a chance, they don't understand him and come to the wrong conclusion that he's evil and needs to learn a lesson. So the quote-unquote the good guys always beat him up and villainize him in the end when he's in a plight, which I believe is what results in Larry's grumpy attitude and trust issues that he has depicted. In LarryDS, I decided that Larry Koopa ends up getting Madoka Kaname constantly trying to help him once he drops little hints that something is amiss with his well-being that might explain his behavior. It's a rocky road for her due to his lack of trust and high guard, but will Madoka be able to get to the roots of what's causing these problems and for Larry and help him? The roots of what explains his grumpy, non-trusting behavior that we've learned in this video that we just watched? Larry is not very smart, likely being the reason he believes Bowser's work is mandatory rather than voluntary, and often tries to mimic Ludwig but fails to really do so that well. I know Madoka Kaname from Madoka Magica would 100% insist on helping him with his plights instead of harming him like all the so-called heroes of the Mario universe do to him. Overall, he's laid back and tends to be considerably lazy. What if I told you that there's a conspiracy theory I've come up with that might help explain Larry Koopa some more? A conspiracy that probably reaches the peak of psychoanalyzing Larry Koopa, but that theory might be for next time if I choose to make it.